I don't know what my political identity or label is, and I'm not even sure I want to be pigeonholed. This is my effort in pursuing extreme honesty and humility in the quest for common ground and truth without the constraints of a tribal identity. God. So does this mean that her next batch of guests are going to be all basically IDW rejects? What's wrong with this? I just think that when people define themselves politically as the opposite of whoever bullied them last, I just think it's pathetic.
Yeah, shout out to everyone for tuning in. Make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're just now tuning in for the first time or maybe the second or third time, but still haven't taken the plunge. Do it, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Join the community. And yeah, let's talk about Destiny, Zach. I think we should talk a little bit about Steven, Mr. Borelli.
A fellow Midwesterner, a man from Omaha.
You're right. We were just talking a little bit about that Omaha swing district. Destiny himself from Omaha. So yeah, let's talk about Destiny. Not a big fan of Destiny. You guys know that he's a lot more of just like a standard liberal, I guess, and also a Zionist, which is really unfortunately, I think he constantly defends Israel and the Democratic Party establishment way more than he needs to. It's like you can give
like John Fetterman.
Yeah, exactly. It is kind of John Fetterman vibes. And it's like, bro, I get that you love the Democrats. I get that you want them to win and stuff, but like, you can still provide constructive criticism. Like, not every criticism of the Democrats is like, I hate the Democrats. Like, sometimes it's because you're like, hey, this is stupid. This is going to actually make it less likely that you win. I think you should adjust course accordingly, right? But that's not really the subject of this conversation. Here's Destiny responding to something that we responded to yesterday, and that's Anna Kasparian's brand new Substack, Unaligned, where she more or less leaves the left, makes it official, and rebrands as someone who's, I guess, just doesn't have any ideology whatsoever. Oh yeah, I'm too stupid to have any ideology. Centrist. Yeah, just I'm unaligned. I don't know. Some people have good points on that side, and some people have good points on that side, and I hate some people on this side, and I hate some people on that side. So I guess I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, that's basically her new politics, which is hilarious. I mean, okay, then like, why are you worth listening to? But
well, yeah, my politics are whoever is mean to me, I hate, and whoever is nice to me, I like. Whoever's paying my bills is good, and everybody else is cringe.
With that being said, let's take a look. Destiny calls out Anna Kasparian.
Kasparian has left the left. My God, that literally no one could have seen coming. You're right. I've changed. I don't know what my political identity or label is, and I'm not even sure I want to be pigeonholed. This is my effort in pursuing extreme honesty and humility in the quest for common ground and truth without the constraints of a tribal identity. God. So does this mean that her next batch of guests are going to be all basically IDW rejects? What's wrong with this?
And yeah, I think that's 100% true. It would be one thing if like she was actually opening up this platform to have those debates that we've been asking for, to, you know, if she's got, oh, look, I'm going to invite all my critics finally, and we're going to hash it out. Nope, that's not what's coming. That's definitely not what's going to happen. She's not going to be having on very many people from the left, maybe once or twice, but I think it's almost exclusively going to be centrist types and, you know, enlightened centrists and right wingers, people like that.
Oh yeah, Matt Walsh, Dr. Phil. You know, Kevin Costner's going to come on there and promote his movie. You guys, I can already tell you it's going to be when she books a huge debate, it's going to be between her and Tim Pool. Okay, it'll be between her and, you know, some Tommy Loren, something like that. And they're going to talk for 35 minutes about how much they agree about, you know, how hysterical media can be and why can't we all just be nice to each other, and then talk for like 10 minutes about how they have like a narrow disagreement on healthcare in the country.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with this? I just think that when people define themselves politically as the opposite of whoever bullied them last, I just think it's pathetic. I don't know why or how I was gifted with this, but I was able to figure out, like in 2016, no, not 2016, I'm sorry, when I was 16, that defining yourself as the antithesis of whatever you don't like is just as stupid as being captured or enslaved by whatever the thing is. I wish more people could understand that. I think the far left is unhinged. Not only is the far left unhinged, I think I actually agreed with Anna on every single one of these major points. You could probably find videos or tweets doing it. I thought that the her homeless encounter thing was insane. Vosh had crazy shit. Was this when he called her a bitch?
And by the way, here's where you can tell that when Destiny says, oh, I agree about the far left, he's really just talking about Vosh, because that's the only person he'll cite. He'll be like, yeah, I did see some insane people on the left bullying Anna Kasparian over that. And then he'll like put a Vosh tweet up on screen where it's like, yeah, you can just point to the one biggest edgelord, the guy who's always going to try to piss everyone off and act like that's representative of the left. Most people on the left hate Vosh.
Yeah, also, this is where Steven kind of reveals himself to be like a NIMBY liberal who wants to live in a clean Vice City, Miami, where he's in his upper high rise and he's away from any homeless people or anything like that. That's one of the spots where him and Anna actually intersect on the Venn diagram. And while Destiny, he'll make a lot of base points for, trans ally and community stuff, I do think he would give Anna way more benefit of the doubt in that previous situation than we would. So we would probably be some of the unhinged leftists that he's talking about as well.
Yeah, although really all we've said is, basically kind of a similar articulation that he just gave about how pathetic it is for you to just base your politics on who bullied you last. So again, I don't really know why Steven gets to point that out, but people on the far left don't. He's kind of a hypocrite in that regard, and he's just as messy. He'll be just as prone to do the whole circular firing squad.
If not more.
Yeah, if not more.
Counter thing was insane. Vosh had crazy shit. Was this when he called her a bitch, or was that over the transgender thing? I thought the attacks she got over the transgender thing were insane. I agreed with her, but that doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden going to pretend that both sides are the exact same now. Does this mean she left TYT? No, I'm sure she'll stay there. Destiny, so theoretically nothing is wrong with the letter, but
and I actually do disagree with that. Destiny says, no, I think she'll stay at TYT. Guys, I was watching TYT last night. Anna Kasparian seemed downright pissed. She seemed like she did not want to be there at all. And Jink did a whole segment where he was laying into Donald Trump, going off on MAGA. And then he turns to Anna and says, all right, do you have any thoughts on this, Anna? And she just says, no, scours and moves on. She's refusing to criticize Trump now on TYT. It's absolutely crazy. So I do think that her time is definitely coming to an end at the Young Turks. She really does seem uncomfortable there. And I really think that she's just desperate to find employment elsewhere, potentially just on her own.
Yeah, and we might pull it up later. There's always great content of Jink just going absolute ham, talking about how Donald Trump is a huge threat to American democracy, how he's a fascist, how he needs to be in jail, how allowing him to stack as many as 5 members of the Supreme Court and with a conservative majority for decades is an absolute disaster and will be catastrophic to the future, all this stuff. Meanwhile, he's also still capable of criticizing Kamala Harris. And while I have massive disagreements with Jink when it comes to things like crime and homelessness, I think he does slip into a lot of backyard NIMBYism. I think that he's way too pro-capitalism for me when we get into the nuances. I thought endorsing a former Republican billionaire housing mogul like Rick Caruso was unforgivable. I think trying to break up his own union at a progressive news network and then blaming it on the fact that it might be Oppo from another campaign when you shouldn't even be running a news network and a campaign at the same time just so you could get humiliated by Christy Smith, and then you run another horrible, floundering, fake presidential campaign. See, so we could criticize Jink, but Jink does have authentic politics. You could draw a through line. He has a real progressive message like 80% of the time. Anna, phony, baloney 100% of the time.
Yep.
There. Destiny, so theoretically nothing is wrong with the letter, but the way it always goes is her turning into a right-wing apologist and potential supporter. It's the sanity washing. The biggest issue with people is when people do this thing where they're like, oh yeah, both sides have extreme problems, and you do this thing where you pretend that both of them are kind of the equivalent, or they both have problems, so they're both more or less the same. It destroys the discourse because they're not the same right now. They are incredibly different. Birthing persons is dumb, but bringing up this or pronouns in this kind of document seems out of touch and not focusing on what matters. Sure, but it's because she lives in the online world, right? Where these are the things that define our current fucking political disagreements, which is frustrating and stupid, but
See, again, there's another example of Destiny accurately criticizing Anna in the same way that we did, but then he'll turn around and say, oh, the far left was unhinged, and I actually agreed with Anna over the trans stuff. But then 5 seconds later, he'll say that and be like, yeah, she's just focusing on this because she's terminally online and she thinks this is important to people IRL, when clearly it's not. It's only important to people in this weird Twitter bubble, and no one even knows what you're talking about, let alone cares about birthing person out there in the wild. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much the articulation that we've been giving here at the Vanguard to that exact criticism. Yeah, dude, we get that you think this is important, but it's not.
100%.
Seem to imply she would be conservative by everything you were saying earlier, Destiny. No, I think you're just, but it's okay, it happens. What I said earlier, and I'll say it again, is what people are doing is they sane wash. When you say things like both sides have problems, that's sane washing. You're making the other side seem like they have arguments that are about as legitimate.
This was my biggest critique of Tim Walz during the VP debate, by the way, when he was just doing the Midwestern nicety. He was rehabilitating JD Vance. You aren't, that's like, I hate to be inflammatory, but because we're reacting to a Destiny video, I feel like it calls for it. It's like if you're debating Hitler, you don't have to be like, well, he did open the door for me on the way in here. So you know what? I do think he might be a family man. It's like, no, dude, every action this guy has ever taken is horrible and miserable, and you should treat him that way when he's on the debate stage, and you should be caustic and you should be antagonistic to him, and you should draw a line in the sand that says we are on this side. And unless this guy wants to change everything that he stands for, then I'm not interested in being polite with them. And it's the same thing with this death.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have necessarily been the right move for Tim Walz, just because of the fact that most people don't think of JD Vance as Hitler. Like, they don't necessarily know what he's done or what he stands for, so it might have come off as unnecessarily aggressive to just come in guns blazing and be like, this man is the worst, most despicable politician under the sun. Like, I don't know if that would have been the best move, but I agree he didn't do a great job either.
Yeah, we're about as insane as the other side. You're making both seem equal, which I think is bad in this political climate. Why are people still having the discussion about Floyd's fentanyl? It feels unlucky to send someone back and kill them, but still unlucky, bro. I mean, I don't know what you're saying when you say unlucky. The issue is people with no experience with recreational drugs have very strong recreational drug.
And then he gets into the George Floyd murder and rambles about it for like 35 minutes. So I don't know why he included that in his clip, but that's basically the meat and potatoes, his criticisms of Anna. Again, it's kind of weird that he speaks outside of both sides of his mouth. He'll be like, I agree with Anna. The far left is crazy. But then he'll, again, accurately criticize Anna and basically take the words right out of our mouth. Like, that's what we've been saying. That's what most people on the far left have been saying about Anna in regard to her weird, like, moral panic over birthing person and the tough on crime shit. So interesting. But for the most part, I do agree with his assessment.
100%. And again, I would be more lenient with Anna Kasparian. I would be more willing to take her evolution as a good faith one, as an authentic one, if she were willing to go out and actually argue with conservatives. But all she ever does is go out and agree with conservatives, which is the exact opposite of what her co-host Cenk does, somebody who I also, again, have big disagreements with. But I'm not in the business of saying that Cenk's on a right-wing pivot, like Cenk is, not going to be a leftist one day. No, Cenk will be on the progressive left forever, just, I think, misguiding his audience. Anna, I think, is genuinely interested in pivoting towards like an enlightened centrist Eileen Wright role. And I just want to play this clip because this is something you would never see Anna Kasparian do. You would never see her show up on Piers Morgan's show and just react to this 30 seconds and see the vigor with which he goes after these Trump supporters.
30% of Democrats said they wished that Donald Trump had been assassinated.
The right wing loves violence. And the minute that it touches Donald Trump, you guys go, oh my God, it turns out violence is bad.
Trump.
Piers, it's okay. He's your friend. You guys did a show together. You're going to have access to him.
Didn't the last time you interviewed Trump, wasn't it kind of a disaster that he was furious with
Thank you,
right?
Clay.
Trump is a super bright guy. You can't succeed in business like he has without a lot of talent.
Well, he didn't.
Tim Walz a moron.
He's a miserable
Tim Walz
failure
an
in
absolute
business.
moron.
6 major
He is going to get embarrassed. Walz hasn't done a single solo interview with a national media figure since he was elevated.
Donald Trump is the dumbest man we've ever seen in public life, and these guys are pretending he's smart. He's like, well, how could he be a successful? He's not a successful businessman.
You are like a guy who got broken up with and can't get over it. This is so deranged.
She's a chameleon. Why don't you admit she's a chameleon? All of you are chanting, lock her up, lock her up. She's a political opponent.
He didn't
You guys
do
loved
it.
it. You loved.
So I'm just like, this is Cenk. This is Cenk Uygur. So again, plenty to criticize the guy for. He has turned into kind of a NIMBY liberal at times, but there's no way to say that he's plotting a right-wing pivot. You can't say that for Anna Kasparian. She would never go on Piers Morgan's show and debate a bunch of right-wingers with half the conviction that Cenk Uygur just did in that 25-second compilation.
Yeah, and 100%. He does that on a regular basis. Basically, at any opportunity, he'll go out there and aggressively bludgeon these right-wingers into submission. Again, Cenk's great at that. He does it all the time on TYT also. And again, obviously, we've had lots of criticisms of Cenk Uygur over the years. It's mostly just like in comparison to Anna, I think he is proving the fact that he actually at least had an ideological foundation to begin with, that he's not just a total grifter. He's definitely had his moments. I remember he flirted with RFK for a little bit, and I was like, what are you doing, bro? But still, when push comes to shove, I think that he's gonna be on the right side of most things. I do think you're right Zach, that Anna increasingly, you just don't see her get passionate in the same way that Cenk does about the things that Cenk does. And more so now when Anna gets really passionate, it's like about this kind of Karen, like NIMBY shit, like shit. It's just, it's different energy. I definitely know what you're saying. And also, like Anna in her article on Substack on this unaligned thing, she talks about how the left is so miserable and how she became so miserable now or after she got into this left-wing niche, and everyone just wants to call everyone racist and everyone just wants to act like Donald Trump is this terrible Hitlerian figure and all this stuff. Well, I don't know, bro. If you watch TYT these days, Anna seems way less happy than she used to. If you go back and watch TYT from like 2015, 2016, she genuinely seemed to have a sense of humor. She genuinely seemed to like enjoy her job, enjoy her work, enjoy her colleagues. She would laugh. She said intelligent things, obviously, but she genuinely seemed to be happy. Now, I really do get the sense that she's bitter. I really get the sense that she's like, you know, just not where she wants to be. I'm not sure why. It's kind of sad almost the more I think about it. But yeah, I just think it's like, you know, she's projecting all of this onto the left. And I think that a lot of people, when they become right wingers, when they make this transition from a more liberal progressive person, a lot of times later in life, you know, they'll make this transition into right wingers. A lot of times I do think it's out of bitterness. It's out of rejection. It's out of some feeling that you're not good enough and you have to scapegoat other people. That's how this stuff starts.
Yeah. Her political ideology really, I think, has changed, right? Like, I think she was able to sell herself on the progressive politics for so long because it was popular, because it was building the numbers of the show, because she was surrounded by a bunch of cool people who also cared, and she got to be a part of a political moment. And now we're seeing who actually cares, right? After those 8 years where it was a cash cow to be a Bernie bro, 6 years where it was a cash cow to be a Bernie bro, now we're seeing who can, you know, who has the legs to do it when it's actually not popular, who has the legs to do it when it's not a cash cow to be a progressive, right? And we're seeing people on all sides of that political aisle fall apart. It's not just Anna Kasparian, right? People in our audience, you guys are the people who watch a lot of progressive media, right? People who are hardcore, you guys want progressive change. You're serious people. You've seen a bifurcation, right? You've seen the Anna Kasparians go one way, the Destinies go one way, where it's like, okay, 2016, it was hot to trot to like Bernie Sanders. Now, oh, the left is too woke, right? And then you get the Anna Kasparian on the far end of that. You also have the Jimmy Dore, Breonna Joy Gray, like, I want the Democrats to lose more than anything. I hate the Democrats so much. I'm taking my eye off the ball that the real enemies are the Republicans. So for whatever reason, they've decided that, hey, I'm going to just pretend Republicans don't exist, and I'm going to freak out about the left and Democrats all the time. And it's like, no, dude, you have to keep both feet on the ground. You have to touch grass. You have to live in reality and say, okay, how do we triage this? Of course, there are all kinds of things that we need to fix, fires to put out on the left. Lord knows Kamala Harris is far from perfect. Tim Walz was a start, but he's not perfect either, right? We all understand that. And then you look at Donald Trump and you're like, oh my God, this is sweltering flames. The blood's gushing. Let's stop that really quickly before, you know what I'm saying? People who have lost that very basic, that very, you know, shallow analysis that even normies come to with ease.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You know what I mean? And yeah, there are a bunch of people who'll be like, bye, libtards. I'm going to go vote for somebody who's going to get 500,000 votes. No, dude, that's a faction of the left that we have to consider too. The people who used to all be under the umbrella with us in the Bernie bro era, a lot of those people have checked out.
Well, and I think it's important to say that like our criticism is not that, like, it's not that you can't evolve or change at all since like the Bernie era 2016. Obviously, after that movement concluded, specifically after Bernie's second run was over, it's like, yeah, there does need to be somewhat of like a reassessment. What worked, what didn't work, what kind of strategies do we need to change going forward? How do we appeal to the sort of people that we weren't able to appeal to in those elections, etc.? Like, obviously, those conversations are necessary. Our criticism is not that Anna Kasparian is a slightly different person or a different thinker than she was 8 years ago. Obviously, everyone's changed a little bit. But it seems like for a lot of these people, like you mentioned, Zach, including the Jimmy Dores of the world, it seems like their strategic reconsideration just basically amounts to, now I'm going to say things that make Republicans feel good. You know what I'm saying? Like, now I'm going to start sounding like a Republican. Like, that's not a strategic reassessment. That's not going to net the left any wins. You're just appealing to conservatives and Republicans because that's where the money is online, and because you got triggered by the lefties on on social media, I guess. Like that's what it amounts to. And I think we do need to have a strategic conversation about how the progressive movement, the whatever remains of the Bernie Sanders movement. I do think we should have a strategic conversation about rebranding and like how do you resurrect that if that's even possible? How do you appeal to people that we weren't able to appeal to? But the answer is not to just become a Republican friendly commentator who creates a right-wing safe space.
100%.